A breaking Rasmussen poll shocker. Newt surges in Iowa, and I mean he's really taken off. Check out these numbers. Gingrich 32, Romney 19, Kaine 13. That is no dead heat. Newt's almost twice the Romney number, well outside the margin of error. So, does this mean caucus goers are willing to look past all the corporate welfare Freddie Mac ruckus? Let's talk. We have Democratic strategist Dan Gerstein and of Gotham ghostwriters, Republican strategist Kevin Madden of JDA Frontline, and CNBC contributor Jimmy Pethokoukis of the American Enterprise Institute. Jimmy P., this looks like a Tea Party revolt and a shift from Herman Cain to Newt Gingrich and a march away from Mitt Romney. What's your take?
Well, I imagine what the Romney campaign has always feared was a strong, unified sort of Tea Party candidate opposing him. Is Newt Gingrich that guy? Is he really going to be sort of the Tea Party candidate? A guy who, like Romney's for the individual mandate, who believes in global warming, who wants to spend a lot of money on basic research and infrastructure. Is Newt Gingrich really going to be the Tea Party candidate? And which narrative is going to hold between now and Election Day? Newt Gingrich, the conservative, or Newt Gingrich, the Washington insider? All
right, well, we'll get back to that in a second. I want to go to Kevin Madden. Kevin, the thing that really shocked me about this poll was 32 for Newt, 19 for Mitt Romney. Now, I know Romney is saying he's not really running hard in Iowa, but he is running hard. That's pretty much what the narrative has been. This is a shocker. What's your take on it?
Well, look, I think, first of all, you can't look at public opinion as an event. It's a process. And I think that the rise of Newt Gingrich is very much a reflection of the debate performances that he's had. He's been very confrontational with the White House, which is the best message that you can have in a Republican primary. And he's been talking about the issues that a lot of these voters care about. So I think that those numbers are a reflection right now. But there still is a great deal of time. There are still many candidates that voters are going to choose from. And the polls, up until this point, all through the year, have been very volatile. We've seen people go up and we've seen people go down. And the one person who has stayed very constant has been Governor Romney. And if you look at a lot of the other polling, this is just one poll, many Republican voters right now are saying that they think Governor Romney will be the nominee. So he has an incredible capacity for more growth in these contests.
But he's actually slipped in some recent polls, and he's certainly slipped in this poll. I mean, 32-19. Maybe it's a faux, but I think Rasmussen's one of the best pollsters in the business. Dan Gerstein, I want to bring you in. From a Democratic standpoint, you have the rare luxury of being completely objective. How do you see this? You know, Jimmy P. just took a whole bunch of cheap shots at Newt for Newt's prior life. It doesn't look like the voters in the poll agree with Jimmy P. What's your take, Dan?
Well, you know, I got to disagree with them. I got to disagree with the contention that this is a shock. The last few months of the Republican campaign have been the political equivalent of a clown car. One gaffe after another, one unqualified candidate disqualifying themselves from the race. Newt Gingrich, for all his faults, is by far the most qualified in terms of policy and experience of any candidate in this field to be the anti-Romney. And so I'm not surprised at all that he's emerging. But I think the interesting thing is going to be is he's getting a free pass because in many respects this campaign is all relative. By comparison, he's so much better than these other candidates.
Well, yeah.
And when it comes to voting, polls are different than voting, and that's a key thing in presidential campaigns.
All right.
When people get in the voting booth, they look at, is this guy qualified to be president? And that's a big advantage for Newt, and that's why I think he's going to win the Iowa caucus.
Jimmy P., I'll let you continue your rant now. It does not look like the Freddie Mac thing is hurting Newt. It may be early in the game. And I know there's stories circulating, and we're going to have Tim Carney on. Newt working for corporate welfare. Newt supporting pharmaceutical companies with the drug entitlement program. Newt has always been upfront about ethanol, by the way. I've argued with him on this program. And, of course, Freddie Mac, we're not entirely sure what his advice is. But, Jimmy P., why does all that matter? Why does all that matter? What matters is what Dan Gerstein just said. Here's what Newt is saying today. Isn't that more important?
No, listen, he's done very well in the debates. But remember, the whole argument against Mitt Romney is that we need a genuine, true blue conservative to make the case against Barack Obama. And I just don't think that once you get done looking at, his record, that a lot of conservatives are going to say, wow, this guy, there's so much difference. There's so much of a gap between him and Mitt Romney, a conservative belief, that we need to go with Newt Gingrich.
Wait, I beg to differ. His record as Speaker, when he was in office, the leader of the Republican Party and really a leader of the conservative movement, was welfare reform, lower tax rates, lower spending, economic growth, and balanced budgets. In other words, that's his record.
Larry, But what both Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich have in common is that they're not Tea Party guys. They don't believe that government, can't pretty much do anything. They believe there is some role for government, whether it is investment, whether it's an infrastructure, that the government can do a few things well, and that's really what a lot of Tea Party people don't want to hear, and that's what those guys have in common.
Larry, though, can I jump in here? One of the key points that I think Jimmy's missing is, he's getting too bogged down in the policy minutia, which is not how voters think. The big difference between Newt Gingrich and Mitt Romney is temperament. Mitt Romney is being very smart and positioning himself for the general election campaign. He thinks he's inevitable, and he's playing to the center. He's presenting himself as competent. Newt is tapping into the fundamental anger on the far right, but in a way that is composed and statesmanlike. And I think that's behind his rise.
Of course, one of the big criticisms of Newt Gingrich was his temperament when he was Speaker.
I want to let Kevin Madden back in the end of this. Kevin, Mitt Romney has done very well. One would almost say spectacularly well in these debates also. And Mitt has a very strong budget plan. He has a very strong entitlement plan. He doesn't yet have a tax reform plan. What does Mitt have to do now to make sure that Gingrich doesn't somehow run away with this thing?
Well, look, I think he's going to continue to talk about what he would do on tax reform and a whole host of other issues. I think I would disagree with Dan that the Boston and Governor Romney and the campaign, they don't think anything is inevitable. They reckon you have to go out and earn the nomination, earn the support of Republicans. And fundamentally, we also have to remember that presidential campaigns in particular are not about voting against somebody. So this idea that anybody's going to go out and try and be the anti-anything, I disagree with. I think Governor Romney is going to go out and try and win people support for being president by talking about exactly what he's for. Tax reform is going to be one of it. Spending, deficits, all of those other issues. Is tax reform coming, Kevin? Is tax reform? So far, he hasn't showed us tax reform.
Well, he showed us good budget reform. Yeah. He showed us good entitlement reform, but he doesn't have tax reform.
I think it's all part of a big issue of economic reforms that he's going to continue to push.
He should steal Newt's tax plan.
And I can't make any news tonight either on any of those.
All right. I always hope. Kevin, it's a pleasure to have you back. As always
great to be with you.
Jimmy P., good to see you. Dan Gerstein, thank you very much. Breaking news tonight.